For those of you who are here, welcome to the November MedTech Innovation Forum. I'm Tuni Shartner. I'm the Executive Director of District Hall Venture Cafe Providence. We are excited to dive into this month's MedTech Innovation Forum that we do in partnership every month with Ximedica and NEMIC. Since 2014, Ximedica has conducted this meeting as an internal monthly information sharing platform to inform its employees about the newest medical-related technologies in the public domain with the intent to spur creative ideas and innovative thinking in their work. As a company that partners with leading medical device, pharmaceutical, and diagnostics companies to design, develop, and manufacture solutions for the healthcare market, innovation is at the core of everything Ximedica does. And I bet you guys are working on some exciting, fast-moving projects right now. District Hall Providence opened last year in August to support startups, innovators, and small businesses by providing them with free and open workspace, meeting and event spaces. Those haven't been so busy lately. We just did our first hybrid program this week, and engaging free programming that supports entrepreneurship and innovation, including our signature Venture Cafe Thursday gatherings. We've pivoted to provide our community with virtual programming throughout the week. This week has been a very busy week, including this programming in partnership with Ximedica and NEMIC. Before we get started with the program, I will turn it over to our partners. Danielle from NEMIC, do you want to take it from here?
Oh, hi, everyone. I'm Danielle Sturm, and a lot of you know me. If you don't, I'm the Marketing Communications Manager at the New England Medical Innovation Center. And at NEMIC, we support startups from all over the world develop their businesses in the US, prepare for fundraising, and bring their regulated medtech ideas forward for successful commercialization. I'm really excited to be here this week because we just launched 2 new programs that might be of interest to anyone on this call and also probably people in your networks. The first one is our MedTech Leadership Program, and this is the second year we are running this, and last year's program was amazingly successful. We had about 20 people graduate from it, and what it is a educational course for MedTech entrepreneurs, innovators, industry professionals, clinicians, really anyone interested in learning a holistic view of how to successfully commercialize a regulated medical technology and then build and lead a fundable business around that technology. Participants will not only learn through this program, but they'll work one-on-one with our team and advisors on building the business plan and pitch deck throughout the course of the program. Our past participants of this program have spanned from students looking to break into the industry, entrepreneurs wanting education on how to build successful startup, clinicians looking to understand, a full picture of how to innovate these technologies and how they commercialize, and industry professionals looking to streamline their company's internal development and commercialization practices. Registration for this program is on a first come, first served basis. And the first class kicks off very soon on November 30th. So spots are filling up fast. Please register. I'll put a link in this chat after I'm done talking to both these programs. The next one is a digital health accelerator that we have in partnership with the Brown Lifespan Center for Digital Health. And this is an intensive and customized business accelerator program that we launched to support digital health solutions that have come to the forefront of innovation due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So if you have a digital health solution, idea, or technology in the regulated space or know someone who does, please apply because you'll get 40 hours of free work with our team, our advisors, and third-party consultants that will bring in to really help you push your product and business forward. Like I said, both these programs are absolutely free for Rhode Island-based residents, students, employees, through the Back to Work grant program that came out of the Rhode Island Department of Labor and Training. If you have any questions, I'll stay on this call after Jessica's done with the forum as well, if anyone wants to talk about it. Otherwise, you can just check it out in the chat. Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it over to the Vice President of Business Development at Ximedica, Michael Mantilla.
Hey, thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Tuni. So I got a quick script from the folks at NEMIC. I think it was 2 sentences, and it would have taken me about 10 seconds to read. So I'm going to elongate it about to 60 or 90 seconds. Thanks for joining us today. As Danielle mentioned, I'm the Vice President of Business Development. And I think everyone on the call probably knows Ximedica pretty well from a high level. I want to just dive down a little deeper and really who we are, what we do, and what drives us. And both of you folks have already mentioned a little bit about that. But for the folks that don't know, We're ISO 13485 certified and FDA registered medical device and development firm. And we specialize in MedTech, diagnostics, drug delivery, and the ever more popular digital and connected solutions. It seems like almost everything is now getting some sort of connected attachment. We were founded 30 years ago by Aiden, who also founded NEMIC. And we partner with our clients to do a number of things. But ultimately speaking, during the partnership, we help them launch products faster and more efficiently. And speed to market always seems to be really central to their plight. And then, of course, after we get through that and we go to commercialization, ultimately what they're looking for is high market adoption and success in whatever product that is. So how do we do that? You heard a little bit already, but we offer an integrated solution, essentially everything under one roof. And that includes every engineering discipline you can imagine: mechanical, electrical, software, hardware, systems engineering, human factors engineering. And then we work with our various teams: research and usability, human-centered industrial design, which is very, very core to our DNA, and our regulatory team, a very extensive regulatory team. And then we couple that all with a robust quality management system and that quality team. So I talked a little bit earlier about kind of who we are and sort of culture. What drives Ximedica and our employees? In my experience and what I've seen and what I sort of live by, spending 27 years in MedTech, is a true passion for innovation. And we're going to be talking about that today. And I think the employees at Ximedica and the company as a whole are really inspired by these new technologies. And they're driven for that reason, for better patient outcomes, better patient care, improving quality of life, and in many cases, even prolonging life and even saving lives. So that's Ximedica at a very high level, and a little bit about our people and our culture. Please enjoy the MedTech Innovation Forum. I know I always do, so I'm looking forward, and I will hand it back to Tuni, I believe.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I love that insight about Ximedica. And we're very excited that you're headquartered in Rhode Island. So thank you. Before I introduce our host, the amazing Jessica Piche, I want to remind everyone that this is a monthly event series. And if you enjoy this event, be sure to tune in next month. It will be on December 17th to learn more about the latest wave of new technologies and inventions related to the medical space. This event will also be recorded as all previous. We actually have a playlist on our YouTube channel, District Hall Providence, with all of them there. So if you want to share post-event, grab the video and share away, and we'll be sending out the recording in an email next week. So let's get started. I'm going to turn it over to our forum host, Jessica Piche, Principal Researcher and Product Strategist at Ximedica.
We do this on a monthly basis, and we do it so that we can all become a little bit more aware of the universe outside of the individual, the whole small projects that we're working on and all the big projects that we're working on. And at Ximedica, the creative process often taps into the insights that come from this and also inspire as we go along the development process. So we cover a lot of different categories. I'm actually planning to add for the next month in an imaging category, because there is an awful lot of products that are coming to market that are just very unusual in terms of the changes that they're bringing to medical imaging. But this is a list of categories that we're covering on a regular basis. Some have more, some have less on a month-to-month experience. We've added COVID-19 in the past 6 months for obvious reasons. So I'm going to just jump right into the first category, which is materials. The world's smallest refrigerator has been developed by UCLA, and it is leveraging thermodynamics, or thermoelectrics. And for those of us who are less sophisticated about this, including myself, this is when a semiconductor is placed between metallized plates, and they harness the temperature differences between the two sides to produce electricity. And what this UCLA team have figured out is a way to reverse that process to actually put electricity into it and end up with a cold and a hot side. So in generating that cold and hot side, they've actually been able to isolate single crystal flakes at a very, 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 very small level, 100 nanometers thick. And the advantage of this could actually lead to some really interesting, smaller, simpler cooling devices at a macro scale. And when we think about some of the, for example, the drugs that are coming to market, like the vaccines for COVID that need potentially cold storage, a way to be really efficient about how we are cooling those individual vials might be very interesting for that technology. Right, I'm actually going to try and reduce down my video of you all and so I can focus on the screen. Okay, so the next material is a porous silicone by Binghamton University. And what they have found is in all these wearable sensors that are now being developed for the skin, you think about a wristband, smartwatches, and even kind of more smart bandages. Part of the problem is that underneath that sensor, the skin can actually start to kind of deteriorate over time. And that can cause inflammation. And also because of sweat can cause some inaccuracies in the monitored metrics that the sensor is trying to collect. Well, this Binghamton team have taken silicone and essentially electrospun it. And this is where the fluids are drawn through an electrical field that then breaks them down into microscopic fibers, as this kind of illustration of the theory of the technology is shown on the photograph here. What they've done is they've taken a silicone called, I'm going to try it, polydimethylsiloxane, or PDMS for short. They've converted this into a material that behaves very similar to the collagens and fibers of the human skin. And it kind of seems to have a lot of similarities in the mechanical testing they've done, and it also has some interesting adhesive properties. Very useful for wearable adhesives. And so what they're thinking is that this porous silicone could allow for sweat to evaporate, but also maintain a high resolution signal, which would be pretty awesome for those sensors. So we should expect to see more of this material coming down the pipe. Another material, and this was flagged by one of our senior mechanical engineers, Leonid, there is an so when we think about LED displays, the ones we have on our phone or maybe in our VR headsets, if you have one of those, the interaction definitely feels digital. It doesn't feel as real because what you're reacting to is a level of pixel density that is not as perfect as the real world. But this partnership between Samsung and Stanford is exploring pixel density to a place that can potentially blow our minds in terms of what that's going to enable in terms of visual capability. And this new LED display enables twice the luminescent efficiency of a standard OLED and has a higher color purity. And so how this is working is that there's two films, one that is beaming, one is a silver film, and one is what they're calling a metasurface. And that metasurface has this, what they call a forest of microscopic pillars of 2.4 microns in size, so super small. And that display is then expected to use more energy than a standard display, which is potentially a problem, but they're going to try and solve it. But what this means for VR headsets and computers could really dramatically change those visual experiences for a user. Also in the world of visuals, this is almost a Harry Potter thing, invisible ink, digital, electronic visible ink, developed by University of Michigan. What they've found is using a thin semiconductor layer of tungsten disenilide and azobenzene molecules. They're creating an electronic invisible ink that can alert a user to the fact that the screen or the device that they're working with has been unauthorized, had tampering with it by someone who's not an authorized user. And so how this is working is an azobenzene is exposed to UV light and it can shrink, making the tungsten layer above it stretch, which then changes the wavelength of the light that's emitted. So a user can write a message into the azobenzene using UV that can be read at a certain light wavelength, but if it's exposed to general light or more visible light, it can potentially wipe the message. So this could be a really interesting kind of security assessment when you think about packaged foods or things that we really care about the security of on a temporary basis. Maybe an encrypted document that you want to send from one person to another and it not be hacked in the middle. Examples might be of that sort. This material is a fabric that has robotic qualities from Yale University. There's a lot of smart people out there, aren't there? So this is a fabric that can change its shape and stiffness on demand, and even by sensing the context of its environment. The fibers have different abilities, and they're woven into a kind of a standard, cotton fabric, if you will. One fiber is an epoxy with something called Field's metal alloy particles, which can melt at a certain degree, and then that forms a kind of soft, malleable fabric. When it's cooled down to room temperature, can lock into a very specific shape. The material is strong enough that it can bear a load of up to 50 grams, which, if you put 50 grams on a typical piece of fabric, it would completely flatten. And there's conductive ink that they painted into the fabric that creates some sensors that can then detect the environment and then trigger the material to react and either heat up or stiffen. So the team that's developed this could see this being an application being self-deploying tents, might be very useful when we're camping, parachutes in terms of when you release from the airplane, or even assistive clothing. All right, moving into sensor devices. Glucose testing is a very big subject area for R&D. If we can get away with avoiding those finger pricks for diabetics, that would be a good thing. Well, this is another way to, another application for that same issue. The glucose paper patch test by this Japanese team includes a combination between paper and polymer microneedles to measure glucose. How they've made this patch is they've melted a biodegradable polymer with salt, salt mixture, and poured that into a mold that has cone-shaped cavities that then obviously form those microneedles. Then the mold is flipped over and then pressed down and bonded against a paper that has glucose sensitivity. When those microneedles are then cooled, the solution draws out, the solution that it's cooled in can draw out the salt, leaving very tiny pores that then through a capillary action can respond to fluid when it's pressed down against the skin, piercing the dermis and then connecting with the interstitial fluid. And if glucose is present, detected under the skin, the pores then can draw that in, and then the paper backing that's glucose sensitive can color change to indicate the level of glucose that's present. This device is attempting to address air pollution. It claims to be the world's smallest air particle sensor, detecting a very, very fine level of air pollutant particle. PM 2.5 is the metric. And this particular level of particle is small enough to penetrate the lung barrier, enter into our bloodstream, and cause all kinds of health issues, cardiovascular and respiratory issues. So this sensor has been developed by this Austrian team, and it's the size of course, in Austria, their reference point is euro coins, 2 euro coins stacked on top of each other, which presents the possibility of the sensor now being incorporated into something that could be a wearable, it could be a smartphone, to really tie and help people understand the air quality in their local community, and then respond with mitigations. Kind of in a similar way, this microneedle patch by MIT is detecting for food spoilage. This patch itself is made from a silk fibrin, which isn't edible, protein extracted from the cocoons of moths, and a combination with bio-ink polymers that are sensitive within the molecule to E. coli and pH levels that are particularly present in spoiled food. So when this patch is exposed to either one of those two elements, the polymer will change colors. You can see on the image on the right-hand side, indicating that E. coli is present or the pH balance is wrong. And you can then make a decision about what you're going to do with that food. All right, moving into robotics, also keeping on the small scale. This microscopic semiconductor robot by Cornell is a sub 100 micrometer walking robot. So when we think small, think smaller and smaller and smaller, using conventional electronics. So when one of the major themes that we see continually over the Tech Forum is how amazingly miniaturized things are becoming. So this particular robot is so small that hundreds can pass through a needle at the same time. really mind-blowingly small. So this robot has 4 electrochemical actuators that act as legs that connect with a silicone photovoltaics. And there's a very thin platinum strip with a layer of titanium on one side. And when a positive electric charge is applied to that platinum, negative ions cause material to expand and then flex the leg, and therefore the robot potentially can move. The photovoltaic panels can be targeted via laser to give the robot specific commands to move where it wants to be moved, potentially in the body. The next robotic system is a partnership between True Digital Surgery and Asculap, which is a B. Braun subsidiary. This system has a robotic arm and digital displays that allows surgeons to have much higher level of visualization compared to standard optical microscopes. And can be used in a variety of different surgical applications. And the EOS includes a 3D digital visualization and customizable image modes that allow the surgeon to augment to better discern tissue or structure. The system has a 10 times optical zoom and fluorescence backlighting to help improve and understand the imaging that is in front of them. It's commercially available today. This next robotic system, Lisa Carmel flagged this one for us. This is a team that we're starting to work with ourselves, call Robotic Delivery System, and provide them with guidance in terms of their development process. So what they are trying to solve is this challenge of mitral regurgitation. And this is a situation where your mitral heart valve becomes weak or diseased and can't really function well enough. And so blood essentially goes in the wrong way into the body. The standard of care currently is open heart surgery, but that is incredibly risky for obvious reasons. And the minimally invasive option to enter into the heart with a valve by the blood vessels is less traumatic, obviously, on the body, but it's very difficult to perform and has a very, very long learning curve for interventional cardiologists. And in fact, they need 4 hands at the actual site to deliver these mitral valves. But the COL system offers a kind of alternative, if you will, because what they have is this robotic delivery system that's a piece of hardware that's pre-mounted, that has a pre-mounted valve clip implant that is delivered by a microfluidic powered steerable catheter into the right place in the heart. And it uses augmented reality visualization and a digital user interface to assist with the positioning and orientation of the implant in the right place in the heart. And it's actually a 3D movement with essentially a mouse, a computer mouse that you're involving in your own individual 3D space to manipulate the end of the catheter in the body. It's pretty remarkable stuff. I expect to file a 510K at the end of next year. Model T is another robotic system, but in a very different form by a Japanese company called Teleexistence. It's been designed for to do retail store tasks like stacking shelves. And in its most basic form or description, it is a torso. It's quite cheerful looking, mounted to a waist-high platform, and it has 2 articulating arms and complex hands and 22 degrees of freedom in its capability. It's directly controlled by a remote human being, potentially working from home or behind a plexiglass barrier using a standard VR setup. And it's been trialed in a Japanese convenience store chain called Family Mart to help enable staff to work from home in this COVID era. The next robotic is an exoskeleton. Lisa Carmel also flagged this one for us, called Ascend by Rome Robotics. It is an air compressor powered exoskeleton that delivers knee relief, rehab, and support. Rome Robotics actually started off as a skiing exoskeleton to help with those thigh muscles as they're burning as you're going down the slopes. But they've evolved their technology to also act as an orthosis for sensing motion and providing support with a pneumatic actuator. And it's smart enough to engage when you need it, but gets out of the way essentially I mean, it's lightweight enough that it can be easily worn without impacting movement when the user doesn't need it. There is a power pack that's worn separately, as you can see on the visual on the left-hand side, that delivers energy to power the pneumatics. Technology has also been developed for the military, for obvious reasons, and first responders who have to lift a lot of very heavy things. They plan to be in the market in July next year. Also thinking about first responders, this one is really quite marvelous, developed by a UK paramedic team called Great North Air Ambulance Service. It is a jet suit for paramedics. We've met a few paramedics, particularly I'm working on a project recently, and they are very brave people and they love stress, but I think this one takes it up quite a high notch. So the challenge that Great North Air has is that they, part of their terrain or geography that they are responsible for also includes some very remote areas where a lot of people go hiking, some of them unprepared, and they run into trouble. And so Great North Air has to try and get to them in an efficient manner. But the ways to get to where they are doesn't allow for helicopters or ambulances. And so with someone who's up 25 miles up on a hiking trail, this jet suit can enable one of a medical crew to reach them in less than 2 minutes and easily land on a rocky surface. The jet suit has 5 turbines and generates 1,000 plus of horsepower and can reach up to 85 miles per hour. I just can imagine some of the testing that they're doing to make sure that this is, it should be a lot of fun to watch for sure in their pilot testing. All right, moving into UI, the hand Morph by an academic team at the University of Chicago, flagged for us by David Copeland, who's one of our industrial designers, senior industrial designers in Minnesota. This is a wearable exoskeleton that simulates the hand of a child, reducing the amount of grasp as well as the range of motion. Now, there's lots of products that are like this that simulate what it is to be elderly in terms of arthritis and limited dexterity. But the fact that there's an exploration for understanding children is a really interesting take on the opportunity. So this particular device takes the form of a glove, and it's intended to give you a perception and form better empathy to how a child may interact with a product. Maybe quite useful for elements where more and more children are giving themselves injections and or delivering medications with devices as one application. So they're built within the glove. There are these small mechanical links that translate to hand movements in the silicone hand, and it provides a haptic feedback as well as providing sensation of restrictive reach. The hope is that this application could also potentially be used down the line for assisting with surgery, where there's a fine motor task that end up having to translate from a normal hand movement to something that's much, much smaller. So there could be some very interesting applications in terms of robotics down the road for this too. Also staying within haptics, the SSD haptic glove by this Australian team have developed the idea of a connected glove that can transmit what one hand is doing to another user with another hand who is wearing the glove, or maybe it be a robot that it receives that same information. So the glove incorporates artificial muscles, as shown on the image here, kind of on the right, and some of the more simplistic drawings representing the soft skin stretch device, or what the SSD stands for. And built within that glove is micromotors, tiny syringes, and hydraulic pressure. The 3D sensors recognize and generate the force when it's integrated into the glove fingertip. And those force signals can be captured and then sent to the remote user's glove, generating the exact forces that have been felt by the original glove. The tech is anticipated for applications for telehealth, for surgical robots, for all of the universe of AR and VR, as well as training, particularly medical students, and also potentially rehab as well. Another glove, but this one has a slightly different application. Dave Copeland also Copeland also found this one for us, the stretchable fiber optics sensors by Cornell. These are stretchable skin sensors built in into a glove using fiber optics that can detect and measure strain, pressure, and the bend on a surface. So each finger of the glove has these stretchable light guides that combine with a polyurethane core that's linked into and has absorbent dyes. And so when a finger is bent or pressure is applied to that surface, the light guide is deformed, and spatial encoders light up and register what is happening where on the hand or the skin surface. And you can see obvious applications for robotics, for prosthetics, as well as physical therapy to communicate that a particular exercise is having the desired effect. This next device, also a sensor and a diagnostic, is designed for inflammatory bowel disease and helping with anticipating a flare-up based on two new cytokine biomarkers in sweat that have been shown to correlate significantly to IBD. So this is a wearable, potentially a wearable sensor. They're thinking it might end up as a wristband format that can track levels in sweat as a way to warn the user about an impending flare-up. The cytokines are released by the immune system in a range of different scenarios, including potentially a viral infection, and could be, they think, are used for tracking other diseases and conditions down the road, but they're focusing on IBD first. Okay, the SWED, or silicone waveguide Echelon detector by two German academic teams, is an ultrasound detector that's smaller than a blood cell, one of those other smaller technologies. The device leverages silicone photonics by allowing miniaturized optical components to be assembled on small silicon chips. And so this particular chip is actually showing us the dots within where the arrows are pointing to. There's multitudes of those ultrasound detectors in those individual dots. And it picks up a change in light intensity as it moves through the mini photonic circuits, which is different from how a traditional ultrasound works that uses piezoelectrics to convert ultrasound waves into electrical voltage. So this technology offers up a whole new avenue for imaging, medical imaging in particular, because it's now going to offer super high resolution to the ability that we can image features smaller than 1 micrometer in size. It really is, honey, I shrunk the kids. I think would be the title of this whole MedTech Forum. I had to give it a title at this point. So you may remember from last month, we talked about the Virome Biomine Health Index that was being developed by another academic team. Well, Mayo Clinic wanted to one-up them, and they've obviously been working on this for years, but there's a gut microbiome health index as well. What they're calling the credit score for your gut test can essentially, they think, help predict a person's general health status by measuring the levels of the presence of a gut microbial species in your stool. And so the Mayo has sought in a wide-ranging study to understand what is a universal signature of general healthy microbiome that we have in our gut. But the problem is that humans, the signature of what that is in individual humans is so specific that it's been difficult to detect up till now. This research team had the lucky job of analyzing 4,300 stool samples that came about half from healthy subjects and half from non-healthy phenotypes, such as those with colon cancer, diabetes, arthritis, etc. And in the comparison, they found that there was a very clear delineation of very specific 50 microbial species that represent what a healthy gut should have. Guess what? It includes spinach and all your green vegetables and fruits and whole grains and all the things that you don't really want to eat, but there you go. So this research team believes that in the future, when we have our routine health screening physicals, that's also going to include a stool sample analysis to help determine the level of health in your gut. I was walking down a hospital corridor talking to some nurses in the past 2 weeks, and they were complaining about how difficult it is to shuttle a patient from bedside to an MRI lab. It's a very complex thing, particularly for very basic patients. And I said to them, point of care MRI is coming, and here it is, hyperfine. This is the first portable MRI that's been tested in real-world intensive care settings to detect, particularly they focused on brain abnormalities at bedside. The system, because of its size, because of its power draw, is 20 times less costly and will be 10 times lighter than current MRI machines that need their own room and their own setup in terms of magnetization to be able to be effective. And so, of course, it's going to use smaller magnets, a 0.064 Tesla measurement from just a single power outlet. So the mobility of this device is going to really be a big game changer for patients who need MRIs. And potentially it could be very useful for rural and more remote areas, third world countries, and potentially even be in an ambulance in our futures. The next diagnostic that has a sensor built into it is the EPINES system developed by this Israeli team, Ben Gurion University. This is designed to anticipate a seizure before it happens for epilepsy patients. The system has two components: an array of a scalp mounted of EEG electrodes that monitor electrical activity of the brain, and a microprocessor that runs machine learning algorithms. In the testing that they've done so far, they've been able to guide the algorithms to predict with a 97% accuracy anticipate the onset of a seizure to up to 1 hour prior to that seizure occurrence. So that could be a real game changer for a patient who's really suffering and being able to take a medication in anticipation of that. The tech has also been licensed off to a spin-off company called NeuroHelp, and they are embarking on clinical trials. This next device is in the world of catheters, and a partnership between George Washington University and Northwestern University. This is a smart sensor cardiac catheter. This is a soft electrode that has stretchable sensors and actuators that can be applied to the surface of a catheter. And the theory is it could help assess, diagnose, and treat cardiac conditions all essentially at once. So existing cardiac catheters, for the most part, are quite rigid and don't actually conform that well in the anatomy. And it requires actually quite a bit of effort and time to move the catheter in a procedure. So this sensor allows a clinician to measure the electrophysical parameters of the tissue it comes in contact with. And once they locate an issue, a particular tissue that's causing arrhythmia, then they can then treat with delivering medication through the catheter. Philips has come to market with the Azurion lung addition system, and this is a combination of multiple technologies that Philips had already previously developed that to essentially improve minimally invasive lung procedures and how they're performed. So it utilizes something called cone beam CT imaging that produces high-res 3D views of the lung, as well as X-ray guidance that gives clarity of the anatomy and the tools that are being used. And so in a thoracoscopic surgery or a biopsy or a lesion ablation, you can actually do that all at once. For example, in an endobronchial biopsy, you can diagnose, stage the cancer, and treat the lesion ablation all in a single procedure to enable much faster therapy and recovery of a patient. Len Faria, another one of our mechanical engineers, flagged this one for us as the AutoSet by Safcan Health. When I saw this, I definitely chuckled for a second because it's quite a remarkable device for something that we don't really, we take for granted, the ability to clean our ears. It's been billed as the electric toothbrush for our ears, not that you would necessarily use it at home, but the device is designed to clean impacted ears, an issue that affects quite a few children, some adults, but quite a few elderly folks, the geriatric population. A third of them are suffering from clean impacted ears. And of course, an impacted ear can have a significant impact on hearing. So the device has an irrigation and microsuction technology built into an automated system. There are disposable silicone nozzles that spray warm saline solution against the walls of the ear and then suck out that solution, as well as the wax that's come off the walls of the ear because of the warmth. And there's a disposable outflow container that you then discard that resulting solution. We've got an FDA approval, so we'll be in the market by our local ear, nose, and eye doctors. The linear system is a therapy developed by an Irish company called Neuromod that is addressing tetanus, the sensation of ringing in our ears. This is apparently a condition that about 15% of the population suffer from, but it's very difficult to measure and understand and provide therapy for. So the system uses the primary device is an electrode that attaches to the tongue that stimulates the trigeminal nerve, which is understood to be related to our auditory system. And with a 30-minute therapy session each day, patients in the study that they did of 300 patients are able to listen to sounds while sucking on the tongue tip. And over time, that improved their symptoms, and the effect on their hearing improved for 80% of their sample study, and the effects lasted for over a year. So they've gotten CE mark approval and are marketing it in Europe. This next therapy is also addressing a drug delivery challenge, coming back to diabetes. Electromagnetism can help control diabetics, developed by this team from Iowa. This is essentially a remote control for diabetes management using electromagnetic fields, or EMFs, to reduce blood sugar levels. So what this team did is they took a bunch of diabetic mice and found that the superoxide molecules in the liver responded to a daily exposure of these EMFs. And as a result of that exposure, the oxidants and the antioxidants in the liver then produced an improved response to insulin, and as a result lowered the blood sugars of these mice. So they then tried it on human liver cells, and after 6 hours of this treatment demonstrated significant improvements in insulin sensitivity. So this could potentially mean a way to treat diabetes without having to take medication. It's essentially a non-invasive therapy for the control of diabetes. Pretty remarkable if they can prove it out in further clinical trials. The next device is also in the context of the body, the electronic blood vessel by Chinese team, Southern University of Science and Tech. This is an implant that mimics the primary function of a blood vessel to facilitate blood flow and assist in drug delivery and heal wounds. It's a flexible biodegradable device that has a cylindrical rod and a metal polymer conductive membrane. By electrically stimulating the blood vessel, it can boost the proliferation of the cells and help with migration of cells that help rebuild tissue, potentially to heal wounds. And the device can create also an electrical field that can make the blood cells more permeable, allowing for a protein DNA, a drug, essentially to be delivered to the blood vessel cells to potentially treat cardiac health issues. Focusing now on just drug delivery, the Orbit subretinal system is a way to deliver a gene therapy drug to the retina without basically cutting and removing gel from the eye, and not having to drill a hole into the retina, which is a process called virectomy. Today. So the Orbit system provides a micro injection into the subretinal space at the back of the eye. They kind of go between layers of the eye to get to the right injection site without damaging the eye structure. And they anticipate the first application for this would be to treat dry age-related macular degeneration. They've got an FDA approval to do this. Disabilities, also staying in the context of the eye, the artificial iris contact lens. Contact lenses are becoming smarter and smarter. This one particularly can control the level of incoming light by mimicking the human iris. This is an artificial iris that has a liquid crystal display that has concentric circles that can be made to be transparent or opaque depending on the pupil size. So people who have iris deficiencies or aberrations or photophobia can work with the prototype to improve their vision. And the battery on the prototype there is a battery on this prototype, it's a very tiny one, can work for an entire day. So you can think of it as a daily disposable lens. There's a spin-off company coming out of this enterprise or this partnership of universities and that aim to commercialize the technology. Another disability called a Loch aid. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing that right. Georgia Tech developed this one. This is a hearing aid that is a lot cheaper than the hearing aids that are commonly available today that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So hearing aids today use a digital sound processor to filter out the distracting noises and amplify the voice of the person you're trying to focus on. By boosting the audio frequencies based on the user's specific hearing loss is how traditional hearing aids work. But this Loch aid uses electronic filters instead of processors, which require less battery power. Less battery power means less cost. And the device is preset to amplify the frequencies that are most often not heard due to age-related hearing loss. So the result is a device that's quite bulky at the moment, as you can see from the user here wearing it around his neck, but it can be made for just 98 cents and can function for 3 weeks on one single A battery. And that's pretty remarkable change, or it could be a big game changer in terms of how hearing aids come to market. And they believe they can make a smaller one for just about $7 in cost. So still, even at a smaller size, it could be remarkable and provide hearing capabilities for a lot more people. Okay, our last couple of categories in the time that we have left. The graphene face mask. So those of you who've listened to my tech forums in the past know how much I love graphene. Well, here's another wonderful reason to love it. City University of Hong Kong have developed a reusable face mask that uses laser-induced graphene to kill bacteria and has demonstrated to deactivate the ugly thing called coronavirus. It's produced by passing an infrared laser over carbon-containing polyamide film, and the resulting porous graphene layer has wonderful antibacterial properties. It generates heat when it's exposed to light, and that's what helps kill the virus. When the virus settles on that mask, or when the mask has been touched, it essentially could inappropriately infect someone if it's disposed of inappropriately. This face mask enables for safer protection for everyone. Also staying in the universe of COVID, Caltech has developed a rapid plex COVID test. So not only will this test be able to evaluate the presence of coronavirus, but also the antibodies against the virus, indicating immunity, as well as inflammatory markers that would indicate how severe the patient has the disease. So the test uses just a blood or saliva sample and can produce a result in 10 minutes. The device works with a porous graphene, again, layer, and with a large surface area. So it has a lot of sensitivity to very small amounts of target molecules like a blood droplet or a saliva sample. The antibodies and proteins attach to that graphene layer, and then that can be analyzed by the sensors. The team intends to refine this to be small enough to be mailed out to at-risk users for at-home testing. And they're working rapidly to try and get this to market as soon as they can. Okay, last two categories here of other and her. For those Scots and the whiskey lovers out there, you may know that more precious whiskies or vintage whiskies are a big business. Some whiskey bottles fetch at market prices of up to $100,000 per bottle at auction. The problem is that as a result of that demand for some of these more expensive whiskies, there are a lot of counterfeiters out there. And how do you really truly know that your whiskey is what it says it should be in the bottle, on the bottle label, without cracking open the bottle? Well, University of St Andrews in Scotland. You know, the proximity is of relevance there. Uses a Raman laser spectroscopy technique to determine the authenticity of the whiskey without having to open the bottle to retrieve a sample. It works by measuring how light scatters, passes through and interacts with the sample molecules to produce a unique signature, and by using two laser beams, one that forms a ring of light and the other that focuses on a specific spot inside the bottle, produces two different signals without the interference of the glass, so that they can validate, as you can see in the signature of various different whiskies as well as vodkas that can be distinct from this measurement tool. The investigator from University of Kent and Paso Pacifico is trying to address the smuggling and illegal, the illegal taking of sea turtle eggs. Sea turtle eggs are very precious, and of course there's an awful lot of conservation efforts to ensure that those sea turtle eggs turn into turtles and then go back into the sea. The problem is, in South America, this is known to be a delicacy and is sold in bars and restaurants illegally. So this enterprise has created these 3D decoy eggs that have been fitted with GPS devices, and they were placed in 101 turtle nests in 4 different Costa Rica beaches that were known for these high propensity of smuggling. And 25 of these decoys were plucked illegally, and they were tracked to their end destinations, and then the police were alerted. But the actual more value of this conservation effort was to understand who was collecting these eggs and whether it was going across the world or whether it was staying local. And what they found was, as a result of their analysis, it was actually a local issue more so than a broader one, and so that they could really focus their small dollars that they had to raise awareness and ensure that people would not ask for these eggs at a bar or restaurant if it was on the menu. They expect to take the success of this project and use it to track shark fins and parrot eggs, which are also of concern for conservation. Okay, in the other category, the Ioniq, which is a car brand by Hyundai, has developed a concept car cabin of the future. And it is really pretty fitted out. It's got a 77-inch flexible OLED entertainment screen that's integrated into the ceiling. There's a clothing care feature that irons and steams wrinkled jackets while you're on the move. There's a shoe butler that shines your shoes and deodorizes them if you need that. And there's even a floor cleaning robot in this very large cabin that needs to be cleaned on a day-to-day basis to keep those floors shining. And there's also a UV LED lamp inside the interior that sanitizes it between uses. It's a design concept, of course, but it promotes the, as we move into automated driving cars, what else are we going to do in these cabins of the future? Okay, one last one here. It was really wonderful at Halloween to see kids walking around the neighborhoods and still having a trick-or-treat experience. And so this one just brought a joy to my face, at least, the idea that Reese's, our favorite peanut butter candy, was kind of getting in on the whole COVID issue, but by bringing a smile to kids' faces and still participating in trick-or-treating. As you can see, it's self-explanatory. This is a 9-foot tall robot that provided socially distant trick-or-treating experiences for kids. It was remotely controlled by operators from 5,000 feet away. And the robot had a door that emitted light and smoke and Halloween music. And there was a voice detection on the door that when the kids said trick-or-treat, it released a king-size candy bar, not just a normal candy bar, but a king-size one from its mail slot when it heard that child say that. And they tried it, of course, in Halloween, and hopefully they'll bring it back next year, even though we won't have COVID anymore. Hopefully. All right, that's it for this month. This presentation, as long as all the others that we've done over the last, I don't know how many years, are kept in an archive by Ximedica, which we mine, where we need to for creative inspiration. If you have any questions, please feel to reach out. As Tuni said, our next session will be on the 17th of December, in a month from now. And if you need any links, here they are.